Welcome to the Legion Outriders podcast, a member of the Radio Free Tattooing Network.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Your source for the latest Legion news, opinion, and analysis.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
John Archiquette.
Will somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way?
Matt Turner.
I'm not afraid.
And Joshua Gray.
You will be.
What's going on, Outriders? John, Josh, and Matt back here again with the Legion Outriders podcast. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Why so subdued?
Because.
Because why?
Well, because I don't want to be all ranty.
Oh,
Angry.
You stop already with that.
Hi, everybody.
All right, well, we got Josh back again. He's in a good mood, I think. So I think we'll have a good show today.
We'll give him some tummy rubs. It'll be fine.
I mean, how could you be in a bad mood? Because we just found out that we're going to the Stanley Cup Finals.
I know, right?
You guys are going to
How
the Stanley Cup
exciting.
Finals?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, cool.
Josh and I, they called us
fun.
up. They called us up
Yeah.
for subs.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
John's already got the
happy for
playoff
you.
beard.
I've been
rocking.
working my playoff beard, so we're good to go. We're going to give a shout out to Darren McGregor, one of our friends of the show, who's a big Caps fan, and he's been giving us a lot of shout outs to the Golden Knights, and they just won tonight, so congrats to him. We'll see you in the finals. And,
It's on.
Oh, yeah.
It's on. Yeah.
Well, that's fun. We're recording a little early this week. We usually do Thursday nights. This is Wednesday because Mr. John is flying away.
Well, yeah, that's part of it, and, Solo's coming out, and I figured...
Oh, we're just going to block that day out for...
We're just going to reserve tomorrow for Solo.
Okay. In observance of all
In
things
observance,
Solo.
of the holy day.
Cool. I'll make sure my vest is dusted and ready to go.
And, of course, we got other big Legion events going on tomorrow as well, since, those of us who don't live in Italy are going to finally be able to get our hands on Leia.
Hey! If you can't see, I'm doing the Italian guy. Hands. Kind of like Therm Scissor Punch, actually, now that I think about it.
You're a little short for a podcast host.
I don't think anybody's accused John of being a little short of
I know. Of anything. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but... Anyways.
So we got a good show for you guys coming up. We're going to take a look at the return of the hobby news segment. We're going to talk about what is the appropriate terrain to have for a good competitive game of Legion. We're going to take a look at, of course, those aforementioned releases that are coming out tomorrow. And then a little bit of talk about one of the new units, the Fleet Troopers. We looked at Leia before, and we're going to talk about the Fleet Troopers.
New upgrade cards out there now.
We saw a leak from the last hidden card of what their upgrades are, and that could be an interesting play style. So we'll look at that later on. But of course, first of all, we got Star Wars news to talk about, and Solo drops tomorrow. What have you heard so far, Matt?
Pretty good. It is officially certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Perhaps not blowing the box office ratings off the roof, but it looks really good. I'm excited to go see it. I got my tickets for tomorrow. I keep inviting you for it, even though I know you're flying away.
I feel like you're just rubbing it in at this point.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm doing. But you're still invited if you want to come. I got an extra.
Oh, gosh. like those plane tickets that I already purchased, probably worth a little bit more than a
They're
Solo
probably
ticket.
refundable. It's fine.
Yeah, but they're tickets to Canada. So,
Actually, that sounds pretty nice.
I know,
now.
right?
Right, yeah. Well, I might try to catch it while I'm up there. I don't know if they're going to have a Canadian dubbed version, though.
That's it's going to be all French and subtitled, and it'll actually be very art house and very artistic up there.
Hey, Chewie, I got a bad feeling about this, eh? About this.
Yeah,
you could just
there you go.
basically take the movie and just dub it with the soundtrack and with the voice track to Strange Brew.
Strange Brew,
yeah.
Take off, you hoser.
There you go.
Hey, guy.
I apologize to all of our Canadian listeners.
I have nothing but love for Canada. So
Yeah, I love Canada too.
Yeah. No beef.
So hopefully everybody will go out see Solo and be entertained. That's my goal, is to be entertained.
No, the Rotten Tomatoes score that's on there right now, that's just critic score, correct?
That's usually what I look at, because user score. I mean, the whole thing with the Last Jedi and all that, it's just...
because some people
for what
hated
it's
it.
worth.
I don't know who would hate that movie.
Well,
stop.
The people have spoken. The user score, the viewer score was a lot lower than the critic score, which leads me to believe that maybe Disney may have paid off some critics. Not to try to put my tinfoil hat on. And
that's a big one too. Holy cow!
I don't know.
No, it was very obviously a targeted,
Sure.
protest from the fans that Star Wars wasn't the way they thought Star Wars should be. But anyways, so
we won't believe
yeah.
that.
Go in with an open mind. I'm just hoping to pop popcorn and enjoy myself.
Yeah, and honestly, I have friends who are living over in Europe right now, and of course, because Europe gets everything before we do, they got to see it earlier today.
Fleet Troopers and the Solo movie?
I know. Italy, seriously. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know what kind of like hookup you have with Minneapolis or with Disney or whatever it is, but man, hook us up.
This thing that we take care of our people.
And we apologize to our Italian view.
Yeah. Wow.
Just check off all the countries we can
Just
defend.
kidding. Yeah. We'll wake our through.
No, my friends who saw it living over in Italy, they loved it. They thought it was great.
Scandinavia, you're next.
Yeah, right.
I think we already kind of did that.
But yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But other than that, Disneyland officially announced that they will be opening up Edge of the Galaxy, the Star Wars land, in the summer of 2019. So I will probably go in the winter of 2019.
Try to avoid the initial rush.
Hopefully go in the off season when it's not quite as crazy. I don't know. The wife might want to go out there. She loves that kind of stuff too. So
might be worth checking out opening weekend. I'm sure they'll probably have like a crazy, rush.
Not without an active lightsaber, I don't think.
Speaking of active lightsabers,
Yeah, man.
Josh has gotten addicted to.
Yeah, there's so I've got an HTC Vive VR setup at home. And VR is awesome. Playing games like Fallout 4 in VR and stuff like that is just so immersive and so amazing. There's this game that's been getting a lot of publicity over the last 3 or 4 months that's basically Rock Band that is crossed with Fruit Ninja, basically. But you play it with lightsabers. So the 2 controllers that you hold in your hand, when you look inside the headset, are lightsabers. And
do you get to pick the colors?
no.
Ugh.
So it's red and blue. So that's all you get right now. But
Well,
you
that's
can,
just crazy.
we can bring
Right.
balance to the Force.
Yeah, you can mod it though. I mean, the game has been modded, so people are
so
putting
what,
in.
you're Anakin Skywalker now.
Now, there are literally people that have gone and modded the lightsabers in the game to be like Kylo Ren's lightsabers. So it's got like the little side cross guards and all
He
that.
doesn't bring balance to the Force either.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah, but have you seen his upper body strength?
I know he's
like-
ripped.
yeah.
He's got an 8-pack.
Ben Swallow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's shredded.
Ben Swallow.
But so as you're sitting there, it's a VR space, so you can look around. It's all 3D, and you have like in Rock Band where you see like the notes kind of coming down the screen at you, and you got to hit it at a certain point. These blocks are floating in front of you and coming at you, and the blocks have an arrow on them that tells you which way you need to cut the blocks. So
they couldn't do something more like training drones or
it's not a
TIE
Star Wars game.
fighters.
I mean,
It's not?
No, it's not an official Star Wars product.
Oh.
It's just a new twist on the rhythm, on the music rhythm games like
with your laser swords.
With your laser swords, yes.
Disney.
Only Jedis carry those.
Sounds like a property you might need to purchase.
Yeah, right? Small little indie dev company. It's like 2-3 people, something like that, put this together. There's a huge modding community that's already popped up around the game. But the experience, if you're a fan of Rock Band or anything like that, and you're like, yeah, man, I could play this,
they need to mod the little blocks to look like youngling heads. I would totally play that.
And which way
Master Skywalker?
Which way the youngling head is pointed is which way you cut.
Oh.
Yeah, right? No. Anyway,
Changes into daisies like in the Robot Chicken.
But, like,
and back.
there's
great.
God, there's people that have modded the game so you can
Beat Saber 2 confirmed.
Yes, there you go. So they've modded it. They've like 3D printed mods so you can stick the controllers in each end of a staff hilt, and then you can play the game like you're like Darth Maul. So you're
or more like the Star Wars kid in my case.
Well, that's what you look like when you're playing the game. You look
that's
like
true.
Star Wars.
What you think you look like versus what
yeah.
you actually look like.
What you look like if you're watching somebody play this game because you're not in that VR space with them. They look like they're just having like an epileptic seizure
I
in
think
front
that's
of you.
YouTube gold waiting to
Right.
happen.
Oh yeah.
I got to go do some searching later.
But I tell you what, man. you get flowing in this game and you start playing some of the songs on some of the harder levels where there's just a lot of cuts going on, and you feel like an MFing Jedi.
Oh, no,
I mean,
I'm sure it's exactly like the South Park episode. That guy is the ultimate badass.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how you feel playing this game. If you've got a VR setup, it's on Steam right now. That's the only place you can get it. And it's only compatible right now with the Oculus Rift and the Vive headsets. It's not on PSVR yet or anything like that. But if you have either of those
Console
headsets,
peasants,
right? If you have either of those headsets and you enjoyed Rock Band and you love Star Wars, check this game out. It's the most fun $20 I've ever spent on a game.
Is there a multiplayer for Duel of the Fates?
No, there's not. Unfortunately.
Can there be?
Yeah, see, wait for the mod where you batting.
There can be anything.
Blocks back and forth at each other, and you're spinning around.
Somebody get on that.
Man, yeah.
Do it, yeah.
Like we just bring you ideas, okay? You guys make it happen.
Yeah. I'll put a video up once the episode goes up. I'll put a video up on our page of what this game looks like because it's amazing. It's so much fun.
I just want to see it without the music and without like all the colored blocks. It's gonna look like every idiot at the silent disco at Coachella. Because if you've ever seen one of those, it's not nearly as cool as Beat Saber.
But I mean, yeah, I've seen the pictures of ravers and stuff like that where they're just they're enhanced and just in it, and that's what you look like.
Right on.
But
well, you know what's better than video games?
Yes.
Board games?
Yes, I'm going to go with board games on this one.
I was going something completely outside the scope of this show.
Yeah.
But
we'll save that for an After Dark episode.
Yeah, so actually we're going to talk about our hobby segment. We kind of skipped over the hobby talk last week. We had a bunch of other things going on, but...
Because you've been painting 40K stuff.
I have been, yeah. Somebody commissioned me to paint some 40K stuff, so I'm just waiting till the Rebels, Legion stuff comes out. Because I have all my Rebel stuff painted. I'm just waiting on... Leia and
more
the
Rebels.
More Rebels.
So, one of the things that has kind of been a hotbed issue on a couple of the forums this week was terrain. And somebody had, posted a photo of their terrain board and was like, hey, I don't understand. Why is everything getting shot off the table?
How are people accomplishing objectives at the later stages of the game when everybody is dead?
Right? And then it was like literally like two little hills and nothing else.
It was... To theme the board out, it would be Grapes of Wrath. It was the Great American Dust Bowl and all the people that have
pretty much
been fleeing away from...
Well, then you just got like an ATSD posted up on one half of it, and I'm like, it's going to be like World War I. Like, nobody wants to go into no man's land.
No, yeah, we'll just huddle on the back of the board.
Over the edge, boys!
Blow the whistle.
And a lot of people chimed in, probably, more than was necessary, but everyone was saying, you need more terrain, dude. You need more terrain.
I mean, yeah, 50 times over, you need more terrain.
But what is the appropriate amount of terrain? Like, what is the best amount of terrain to have on a table without making it, unbalanced in one way or the other?
Well, I mean, how much terrain you need, that's clearly spelled out in the rules. You've got to have a quarter of the table covered in terrain. And, I've seen a lot of people here playing games here. Well, how do we figure out how much is a quarter? Because what they'll do is they'll just put a bunch of pieces on the board and then they'll eyeball it and they go, that looks like a quarter. But if you literally just take the table, measure off 18 inches on the long end, and then fill it, 3 feet by 18 inches, that's a quarter of the table.
Yeah.
Where were you in my 5th grade math class?
I was in... how old are you?
Never mind. Let's not talk about this.
Yeah.
Obviously, you both failed math class.
Yeah. So if you just measure out 1.5 feet by 3 feet on your board and literally fill that with terrain, there's your quarter of the board with terrain, and then place it out there. Now, when it comes into I can measure that area of the board off and fill it with nothing but barricades that come out of the core set, and I've filled the objective of a quarter of the board. Not really.
No, I think in what I've gone by is usually like half of that quarter, which is numbers.
An eighth?
Oh my God, you're so smart. You use area terrain and the other half line of sight blocking terrain.
I'm just kidding. Okay. I'm like,
it's
damn,
okay.
dude,
God,
you're a lot smarter than that.
But it's nice to have a mix, so you can have your forest, your jungles, whatever, and then you have some good stuff to block line of sight completely from those tall ATSTs.
Yeah,
because otherwise they just run the board.
And that's I think probably the key is to get a good variety, because you want to have stuff that's going to give you line of sight blocking. You want stuff that's going to be area terrain.
Yeah.
You might want some stuff that's impassable.
You want to be able to hide models if you need to.
Exactly.
Preserve your troops for objectives.
Yep. And sometimes you want to have terrain that might impede troops, but not impede vehicle. The repulsor vehicles, things like that. So that's why you'd have a wall, say.
Yeah. That
you couldn't cross over. So I mean, that's there's different ways of putting it out there. Now, the last game that I just played on Twitch last week was Sean.
We streamed most of a game.
Yeah, and it became kind of one-sided. But one of his complaints that he had was that he thought that maybe the terrain was kind of set up in favor of one side.
Okay. Yes, and this was brought up in chat. It was actually a really cool kind of hangout and talk about Legion session. We're going to try to keep doing that, but. There was definitely one side favored the other. You had a very nice barricade, came to a point. I think I called it Fort Kickass, and you posted up there, and you guys were playing Breakthrough, and Sean went for it. I mean, end of the day, he could have avoided, but he decided to engage. And
he chose to charge no man's
land. Yeah,
essentially.
he went over the wall and got shot to pieces when he probably could have just, preserved forces a little bit. So he was a little bit rusty. He hadn't played in a couple of weeks, but he absolutely went for the bait, and there was no Akbar screaming in his headset.
We all need an Akbar.
No, for sure. But I've always been a fan of asymmetrical board setup. I think there needs to be an advantage to one side versus the other, because then that makes that red-blue consideration that much more tactical.
And I was just going to basically say exactly that. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
we agree.
In my opinion, you have to have that, because why, if I'm going to go for that blue player bid, why am I undercosting myself as far as what I'm bringing to the table if I can't then turn that into a tactical advantage? Part of saying, hey, I'm gonna short myself 20 points here so I can make sure I get the bid.
Well, that's just ridiculous.
Well, you could do it.
I mean, you could.
Yeah. Maybe I want to do that to ensure I'm going to be the blue player, and I can look at the battlefield and I can define the battlefield successfully on my terms. And you got to fight on my terms. That's the whole point of being the blue player, right? Isn't it? I mean,
well, there's advantages to either one,
right?
But yeah.
See, now actually, sometimes I'd prefer to be the red player, because that way I don't have to, or I've got probably more activation tokens. So more than likely, I'm probably going to be putting my units out last.
Yeah. But if the battlefields were always symmetrical, both sides, it would get boring really fast.
Right.
Because you're like, okay, you're going to head to that wall, I'm going to head to my wall that's the same. Are we going to fight? Maybe if we're in range. Maybe not.
And we saw that with like the Learn to Play when the first course that came out.
It is very symmetrical.
Yeah, and that's kind of what a lot of the games turned into was, all right, unit of Stormtroopers hide behind this barricade, unit of Rebel Troopers hide behind the other barricade. We're just going to shoot at each other, and
And whoever has the dice luck,
whoever comes out of the barricade first loses.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, right.
So learning to, and of course we didn't have the objectives at that time, so we weren't really playing with all the different scenarios.
But yes, just grow that larger, and you might still see the same things.
But when you talk about defining the board, for competitive games, when you get into tournament play, there's also the competitive terrain rules that are in there that essentially state that you're going to show up to a prepared board. The terrain is going to be there, and the tournament organizers are going to take 4 pieces of that terrain and set it aside off of the board. And then after you determine who's the blue player, before you get into the cards and everything, you're going to finish defining the battle space. So the blue player will look at one of those 4 pieces of terrain, pick one, and then place it. And then the red player will look at the 3 remaining, and so on and so forth. So every player will then have, you're not fighting on a completely tilted board. Each player will have some opportunity to determine what the board state is going to look like and set things up more advantageously to them. Now, you don't know what deployment cards are going to come out of this. So, you may set something up thinking it's going to be great, and then you end up with Long March. And then it's
Dude, Did you have some sideways facing barricades? Maybe
Yeah.
somebody thought about that.
Something
hopefully,
like that. Yeah. So it's not completely on. Blue player has all the tactical advantage there because when you're talking in the competitive space, formal tournaments, things like that, you're going to have the ability to kind of set all of that stuff up. One thing that I've noticed about the terrain that I've seen, whether it's stuff that people are 3D printing, offering for sale, and we kind of talked about it when we had some terrain here in front of us, is a lot of times the tops of the terrain are uneven for buildings and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important for when we talk about what kind of terrain we're putting on our boards, try and find terrain that's going to be tactically useful in all situations. Mm-hmm. It's pointless. Yeah, you're going to have buildings, you're going to have things that obscure, but grappling hooks are a thing for a reason, right? In the game. But if you set up a board that doesn't have any terrain that is grappleable, I just made that word up, by the way.
Any kind of three-dimensional building or whatever, yeah.
You basically, you turn it into a 2D game. It's supposed to be a 3D game.
Yeah.
Make it a 3D game. The other thing that I've noticed, and I've seen a lot of boards, there's some really great boards out there where people are going all in and doing the whole base Star Wars diorama thing. Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of folks out there that are using terrain that are from other game systems, just out of necessity.
Yeah.
Whether you have a large 40K presence in your store, or you've got a large bolt action presence in your store, or whatever. But what comes into consideration that's not, I don't think people have thought through. All of those systems have different movement systems than Legion does.
Yeah.
In 40K, if you've got a wall that's got a bunch of windows in it, you can move through that wall unimpeded because they just simulate your dudes going through the windows.
Sure.
Legion has no way. You can't move through a window. If there's a door, yeah, you can go through there if you can squeeze the template through. But open windows. Dude should be able to go over open windows, right?
And just to be maybe a little pedantic here, not just the movement tool, the whole base has to fit through there.
Okay, even then, sure, right? So,
which it would because of the way the tool's built. So never mind.
Yeah,
I'll shut up.
Well, I mean, the bases are smaller or wider than the tool is.
Are they? I'm trying to picture.
They are. Not by much.
Okay.
It's
anyways.
But yeah. But I get your point, right? I mean, you've got to be able to move it along that path without being impeded. It's a window that to scale is 5 feet wide. Why can't my dudes go through a 5 foot wide window that's...
I'm sorry, you've got to walk around the corner first.
Right, yeah.
Well, I feel like with anything else, it's one of those things you just talk to your opponent ahead of the game.
Sure.
Before the game,
if you guys want to say,
look at
hey,
each piece of terrain.
can we move through these windows? And everybody agrees to it, and I don't see a problem with it.
Right. But I find that, that's a rule that I don't think was brought up because when you're looking at the terrain, especially in terrain in Star Wars, you're looking at defined structures.
Yeah.
Tatooine huts, Endor bunker. There's not a lot of what you see in 40K ruined buildings because
unless you're doing like a Jeddah themed board or something.
Yeah, because there is no grimdark in in Legion, right? There's not any.
What is slaughtering younglings?
That's dark.
That's the darkest of grimdark. But the buildings were still whole when that happened.
Yeah.
But you understand what I mean.
Sure.
There's not a lot of fighting over ruined hellscapes like in 40K where everything is a ruined hellscape.
Yeah, it's Star Wars, especially on the edge of the galaxy, is a well-used environment. There's some wear and
Gently
stuff.
worn.
Yeah.
Gently used.
Yeah, previously enjoyed.
I mean, you're not limited to anything besides your imagination because...
Oh, sure.
I mean, there's...
But like in 40K, it's all entropy and decline. And
Sure, but during the Galactic Civil War, I mean, there were plenty of planets that were war-torn and probably had ruins. And I mean,
littered with the bodies of Jedis.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how many species there are. You could very easily incorporate, Orc or Eldar style buildings into your battlefield and say this is a Tauntaun.
I've already seen people using Tau shield walls for
that's perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very
really
thematic,
cool, like a Cloud City style.
Absolutely.
Board,
There you go.
But there comes a point where imagination butts up against the intent of the rules for the game, and there's you would have to maneuver around every. rules as written, you'd have to maneuver around anything that's, a certain height.
Just like Beggar's Canyon.
Back home, sure, yeah. So there's a balance that needs to be struck, I think.
Sure, a balance of the force. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break and then come back, and we'll take a look at some of these fleet troopers we got coming out.
Tune in every Wednesday to Radio Free Tatooine, a Star Wars podcast that's better than some and worse than others. Take a trip to a water cooler far, far away as we bring some casual, fun conversation into the Star Wars podcasting community. Hosted by me, Sean, my sister Amy, and John. Radio Free Tatooine. We may not know what we're talking about, but we sure know how to record it. For more, visit RadioFreeTatooine.com, a proud member of the Radio Free Tatooine Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Legion Outriders podcast, a member of the Radio Free Tatooine Network, recorded on location at Power 9 Games. Whether you're looking for the latest releases from Legion, X-Wing, 40K, Magic, or any of our other extensive inventory of board and card games, head to power9games.com and use coupon code OUTRIDER10 to get 10% off your order. Plus, shipping is free on orders over $100. Now, back to the Outriders.
We're back with Legion Outrider podcast. Time to talk about some fleet troopers.
Not all.
Just a few of them.
Yes.
You know who you are, who we're not talking about, fleet trooper.
And
who
you
shall
know
not be
why
named.
we're not talking about you. You're bad.
He's very gassy.
Very bad.
So I know fleet troopers are probably the thing you're most excited about, right, Josh? As a big Rebel player.
Yeah, they die well. They are
How do
proof
you know?
positive.
You haven't killed any.
Fleet troopers are proof positive that stormtroopers can hit things.
That is true. I think the greatest moment of screen time the fleet troopers ever had was just getting sliced to pieces by Vader at the end of Rogue One.
Right. Yeah. They're just there to die.
I say that the best moment they ever had was when they were standing on Yavin 4 and he was like checking in ships as they were flying
That's
into
true.
the base. That was pretty cool.
It was like a radar, like a police radar gun.
Yeah, it was like, pachoo.
They just checking their speed, make sure
Yeah.
they're not speeding.
Best moment for a fleet. That's honestly probably the best happy outcome you could have being one of the fleet
Yeah,
troopers.
because he's like the only fleet trooper you ever see that doesn't die.
They forgot about me. I think I'm good.
All I had to do was get up on this thing on this really thin stick.
Just act like I'm
85
doing
feet
something.
in the air.
I think my favorite thing about
That's why we're not talking about Gary.
Right?
I think my favorite thing about the fleet troopers, like their rules and everything like that, is they basically just took like their one scene of crouching behind doors and made that into a rule.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what they're doing.
What are fleet troopers good at doing? Well, I think they're good at making themselves small and sitting in doorways.
Waiting to die?
So they made rules that simulated that.
Not about getting help. That's not something they do well.
But in all honesty,
Or
they do
opening
have some
doors.
use in Legion, I think. We finally saw some reveals of their last card. During the initial release preview for the fleet troopers, they showed the scattergun trooper, and the scattergun was the range 1 to 2 red die, pierce 1. So 23 points. It's all right.
2 red dice.
Yeah, you can't complain about 2 red dice.
Yeah,
And
Pierce isn't
having
bad
Pierce,
either.
yeah,
I
it
mean-
gets rid of 1 block.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's nothing terrible, and 23 points, it's not a ton.
But I think that weapon is a good offset to the fact that fleet troopers throw a whole grip of white dice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Hopefully you'll be able to generate an aim token somehow.
Well, their special rule, Ready, allows you to perform a standby action to gain a free aim token that way.
I don't think that's your plan A, though.
Yeah, I mean, standby is a rule that's just... It's not great because I can shoot first, then move.
Yeah.
If I'm a Stormtrooper unit or any unit, I'm going to shoot at you first just to knock that aim token or that standby token off.
Sure.
And then move into range. If I'm at range band 3, there's nothing you can do, and it forces you into either sitting tight and hoping you don't get the standby token shot off of you, or trying to maneuver really aggressively to get into range 2 so you can shoot at something.
So here's where I think fleet troopers have play. If you are trying to keep an enemy from getting to an objective, or you know that they're coming, and if you want to move around, maneuver around some line of sight blocking terrain, so you've got standby, you're kind of focused on, one section of the board and you are waiting for them to come to you. I may run one unit of Fleet Troopers, just kind of for that purpose. I don't foresee myself running any more than that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, they're a good, like you said, they're a good area denial weapon.
Yeah.
But they're good on camping on an objective, kind of in the same way that that snowtroopers are good at camping in an objective. The problem is they're not that great. I don't think they're going to be that great anyways at pulling people off of an objective.
Yeah.
You know, white dice are fickle, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why there's that meme going around that has like K2SO and it just has like a pile of Legion dice. And it says, would you like to know the probability of rolling a blank in Legion? It's high. It's very high. That meme exists for a reason. So yeah, you know, you got a full up squad of Fleet Troopers, you know, 5 of them plus a special weapon. You're throwing 10 white dice and 2 red at range 2, but I mean, white dice are fickle. You're not using that to pull people off of an objective like you're going to go and use a flame trooper.
Sure.
That's just going to go, and regardless of cover, regardless of anything else, it's just going to wipe a unit. It's just going to erase a unit on the strength of the weapons.
Now, when it comes to, you know, as a Rebel player, am I going to go for more Rebel Troopers or more Fleet Troopers? And there's no question. Rebel Troopers are cheaper. They be able to shoot black dice at range 3. I think it's all around better.
You know,
I didn't realize they were cheaper. Holy cow.
You know,
you were right.
And not only that, but I mean, okay, I take a Z6 trooper.
Yeah.
A Z6 trooper is essentially a range 3 unit that is 3 Fleet Troopers.
Yep, basically.
Because you're throwing 6 white dice with the Z6.
Yep.
You know, I'd rather take 5 black, 6 white dice than 10 white and 2 red.
Absolutely.
I mean, just the probabilities there are so much better. Now, the one thing that the Fleet Troopers do get, I do believe they have an offensive surge. So
they do. They have both offensive and defensive
surges.
Oh, that's not nothing.
You know, your odds increase a little bit more, but not much.
Well, actually, double. Your odds are double.
Well,
yeah.
Because if you're rolling, you know, a D8, if you've only got 1 hit, 1 crit, you're only hitting 25% of the time. You add the surge in there, you're hitting on 3 out of 8. So you're almost hitting 50% of the time, which, I mean, that's not terrible.
No, the white dice only have 1 blank.
What?
Or no, I'm sorry. The white dice only have 1 hit on them.
Yeah, 1 hit,
right.
1 crit,
1 hit,
and then 1 surge.
Okay, crit.
Yeah. So you're hitting 3
Sorry.
out of 8 times. So I mean, you're almost hitting 50%, which, you know, if you're shooting twice,
pretty respectable.
It's respectable.
Actually. Yeah, that is a boatload of dice. That is weight of dice going on right there.
Yeah, and you throw an aim on that. That's really, I mean, it's not bad. But I agree with you. I would much rather be throwing 5 black than 6 white.
Right.
I know you would.
But the other card that we kind of hinted at that was just announced or just, you know, released, the MPL 57 Barrage Trooper. So this is a grenade launcher.
Yep.
So this is the 1 black, 2 white dice up to range 3, and it has blast, which is ignore cover, and impact 2. That's exhaustible. So it's kind of like the rocket launcher or the ion trooper. You know, you can only use it once and then have to, you know, reset it. But 33 points, so it's 10 points more expensive than the scattered trooper. How do you feel about that?
It'd be nice if it was an exhaustible weapon. Exhaustible weapons are in a really weird place right now in this game, where, you know, they're good, but they're not good enough to
justify
using
actions,
them in a game that's limited to 6 rounds. So
12 actions ostensibly per.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, you're taking those troops and you're emplacing them somewhere, and then hopefully, you know, refresh, shoot. If you've got to move those guys at all, it's not worth it, because now if you've shot the round previous and you've got to move, unless you have something like Veers.
Yeah, Veers would be pretty good with these guys.
Yeah, Veers would be great with these. You don't have any way to put volume of fire out of that weapon to make it worth the cost.
Sure. And we've talked about how action economy is so huge in this game.
Right.
So if you're wasting one of your actions just to have to, you know, reset it.
Now, it's not terrible having an exhaustible weapon on a Rebel Trooper, because you have that fallback weapon of, you know, of a black die.
Yeah.
Right? Here, you've got the fallback weapon, especially with the grenade trooper. The grenades go out to range 3, but the DH-17 only goes to range 2.
Yeah.
So,
That's kind of my feeling on it too. Yeah. Because
it's hard.
It gives you some more impact options for Rebels, which they don't have a lot of now.
That's very true.
Right. It's now the first infantry anti-armor piece that's worth a damn.
But here's my thought on that though. As a rebel,
I saw his ions do work last week.
That's what I'm thinking. Like as a rebel player, the only thing I need to worry about with impact right now is ATSTs, and rather than having to waste the firepower to try to take down 11 wounds, I'd rather just freeze it.
Yeah, or
talking
ignore
about action economy.
Sure.
Ignore it, freeze it, move around it.
Yeah. Well, that's fine with one ATST, but if you've got 12 hit points or 18 hit points of ATRT to mow through, now that's a different story.
That's true, yeah.
Impact 1 is workable on the Stormtroopers because I don't have to refresh it.
Yeah.
Right? I can go and if I've got trooper spam, I can fairly reliably put a collective Impact 5 onto one unit a turn. I can't do that with this because or the MPL Ion because I have to tap it. I've got to refresh it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not putting that volume of fire down every single round. So Impact 2 at least makes it a little bit more usable because if you're assuming you're not firing it every round, you're firing it every other round, that makes it Impact 6, which puts it on par with a DLT-19. Because the DLT's Impact 1 can shoot every round, your Impact 2 shooting every other round. So it's on par, but it's still...
I like the versatility of being able to have blast and impact because, there's not a lot of options for the rebels that have blast outside of concussion grenades. But again,
True.
Once you use the exhaustible portion of it, it really just kind of...
and that's where it's going to come in handy, is it's going to come in handy with, if you've got a unit of fleet troopers with impact grenades, but you still need to close assault and get past cover.
Yeah.
Shoot the grenade launcher, cover, and then follow up with 5 black from the impact grenades. Doable.
And that's why I do want to get a unit of them just to try to, work them into my game plan.
Yeah.
Are you going to change your list up a little bit?
I might. And that's one thing that we kind of talked about. Repetitions versus experimentation with these new lists.
Yeah. One thing on the fleet troopers.
Oh, yeah.
Real quick, sorry, before we move on. Like the snow troopers, this is going to be a unit that's going to be really good with that rapid reinforcements condition card.
Absolutely.
Right?
For sure.
Because, again, they're a great area denial piece. Because you don't want to get too close to them because, again, volume of fire is going to ruin your day if they could sit there, do an aim token, and then throw all those white dice.
Just be back at the board swinging their arms. If you happen to walk into them, that's your fault, man.
So, they definitely have their tactical uses, but like the snow troopers, oddly enough, since that's kind of the unit they're released across, and this is kind of the thing they're doing with Legion, it requires a lot more nuance to use them effectively.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I'm not sure how keen I am on the idea. The snow troopers have a very direct, you move forward as fast as you slowly can, and you flame things, or you use impact grenades or whatever. But they seem to have a very, direct approach. Mm-hmm. Whereas I don't know if I like the idea of move close but then defend, like move up and then try to be on the defensive. It's got its.
You move up rapidly, you take your little piece of terrain, and you defend it to the last man if necessary.
Try to find a doorway, and then huddle in there to Three Stooges style. That's pretty much what you have to do.
Well, I guess this is where we wait for the Dark Lord Vader to come and chop us all up now. It's been good, guys.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about what I kind of hinted at earlier. Experimentation versus dedicating a one list and playing it until you've mastered it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just noticing during the stream last week that me and John have very different approaches to how we play the game. Like, he is locked in his list and it really hasn't changed since like the first week.
I think since the first tournament that we played,
yeah.
Where I was running a airspeeder,
Oh, right. You
Yeah.
ran an airspeeder
I was running an
once,
airspeeder.
and then
I lost that game, and I was like, you know what? I really just don't like this airspeeder. It doesn't fit into the strategy I normally want to run.
Join the club, because pretty much everybody hates the airspeeder. So yeah,
It's a glass cannon, and that's
Yeah.
it doesn't fit into my strategy. So that's not my play style, and I've played this 3 ATRT with rotary cannon, 5 Rebel Trooper squad, and Luke list.
yeah.
Pretty much ad nauseum since then.
Yeah, no, and to great effect. You're definitely kicking butt. Whereas every time I go to build a list for something, it's like, okay, what haven't I played with yet? What looks interesting? What do I want to try and break open and see how it works and get to the nuts and bolts? Probably because I haven't found a list. I'm like, oh, this is it. This is the one I'm locked in on.
Yeah.
Yet, but
So, you've probably gotten a better spectrum because you've played both Rebels and Imperials.
yeah, I've been favoring more the Imperials recently, but I'm probably going to end up playing Rebels in the next day or two.
Just so you can get a chance to experiment with Leia. And
Well,
Fleet
I'd set up a
Troopers.
game with Daniel, and he plays Imperials, so
Oh, okay. You don't want to do a mirror match.
I always try and do that if at all possible.
So, with all the experimentation that you've done and playing with different units and things like that, we're playing for fun here.
Yeah.
It feels good to win, but when it comes down to it, I'd rather just have a fun game. And do you think that you get a better sense of enjoyment by experimenting with your list, changing things
Well,
around?
definitely, it's the way I like to play.
Yeah.
I'll come up with a goofy concept I was talking about naked ATRTs, a couple weeks ago, and that's fun. I wouldn't always that is not the tournament list that you go to, but
Yeah.
it was a fun goof. But I learned from that and started incorporating more. I definitely. After seeing you use them, I like the Gatling cannons on the ATRTs a lot more. I know I used to really like the laser cannons early on because I thought that range 4 would be more of a back when we were playing with less terrain on the boards, it was a much bigger deal. But
and a lot of people were advocating for the laser cannon when we were talking on Twitch. You were saying that a lot of people were saying in their meta that the laser cannon was actually a lot more dominant than the rotary cannon. So, to each their own.
Yeah.
And, that's part of the experimentation.
Yeah,
thing
don't let us tell you you're wrong,
Yeah. If you want to run flamethrowers, we advocated for the first 2 shows, by all means, go for it.
Actually, for the escalation tournament,
Yeah.
I'm going to let this out of the bag. I found a list where I can take a flamethrower ATRT,
Really?
and I think that would be just gross and fun.
Well, and honestly, that could be a good approach because, you're seeing trooper spam seems to be the most dominant list that we're seeing.
I figure
so.
I'll see a lot of troops, so
Yeah.
throwing a flamethrower out there seems like a good thing to do.
So, with my approach to it, I do, like you said, I have been running the same list for a while. Part of that is because I've been playing strictly Rebels, and the Rebels haven't had a huge selection yet. Now that Leia...
But you're saying, so to quote you, I'm still playing Luke, even after Leia comes out.
Yes. The list that I have prepared for, my first game after Leia and the Fleet Troopers drop, I've got both Luke and Leia. And I think that running dual commander is going to be a really good option for Rebels.
Okay, so you're actually incorporating her into the list. You're not just ignoring her.
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna use her because she has some great command cards. I think that the synergy she adds to the troops around her is really good.
It'll be interesting to see how you run that list after you've had it locked in for so long.
Well, I'm sure I'm probably going to have some pretty
some
bad
adapting,
games
yeah.
right away. So it'll take a little bit of time to learn that. I might drop one or both ATRTs or 1 or 2 ATRTs and move another troop unit into it too.
You love them troops.
So I do, yeah.
Are you not at 6 already?
No, 5.
Oh,
So
that's
I've been
right.
running 5, and one of the things too
And
that I've
then
been doing with
Fleet
my list
Troopers, so there you go.
is including one bare bones trooper unit, just for objectives, and because people like to ignore them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't have an ion trooper, you don't have a Z6.
No
I
ion,
don't care
yeah,
about that guy.
exactly.
And all these things, they're just 4 little guys scampering around buildings, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, they're in the objective, they're in the backfield right now. What's going on here?
Josh, what do you find is your approach?
I like to do a balance. It's important to have a list
How dare
that you're
you,
familiar
sir.
with.
Okay.
You can't, especially if you're coming out into a competitive space, you can't have a list that you're like, well, I'll just throw this together and try it, and because then you start forgetting upgrades and things like that. It's not as big of an issue now here in Legion because, just like you guys have been talking about, there's not a heavy variation of what's out there. right? You're not going to forget, spotter on Veers. I've never played with Veers before. I didn't know I could do this. There's enough units out there that in the few games that you can play, you're going to remember everything.
Yeah.
You get into a game like X-Wing where there's hundreds of upgrades possibilities for a list, and then you go out there and you realize, oh crap, I didn't use this card for like the 6 games I played today. I've had that happen.
Trust me, coming from 40K,
with
all the stratagems out there.
Sure, yeah. Same thing.
Yeah.
You've got to play your
games,
list enough to be familiar with it.
Exactly.
On the other side, I've seen people in X-Wing, high-level competitive players that play essentially the same list for like 3 years. And I'm like, I guess winning major tournaments is fun, but I look at that and I go, how is that fun? Running the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over, the same,
But I think because X-Wing, you pretty much, correct me if I'm wrong, but X-Wing, you pretty much have the same objective every time: blow up the other person's ships. Whereas for this, the game can change drastically if I'm going from battle lines, breakthrough, also to long march and transmissions.
I think the thing, I read an interview with some X-Wing players that said they played kind of like the I forget the name of the law, but like you got to do something 10,000 times to master it.
Yeah.
Right. They've said before they'll even consider taking a list into a tournament, a big time tournament atmosphere, that they want to play like 100 or 200 games with the list, which that's a lot of. That's a lot of practice time. That's a lot of games.
Assuming you're playing
in your
multiple times a week,
store, and usually
that's
if
several
you've got
months worth of practice, which is good.
Yeah, and usually you've got to have some friends close by or something like that that you can get those kind of games in. But I think that's important in X-Wing because everything is between the movement dials and the way templates work and everything. You've got certain. The kinesthetics, I guess, for lack of a better word, of the ships are very important.
Okay.
Looking at the board, seeing I'm going to be here, I'm going to end up here. If I'm a millimeter to the left, I'm on an asteroid and I can't shoot and my ship's dead.
Well, and you can't pre-measure in that game,
you
right?
You can't pre-measure in that
game. So
either.
having to know which of those templates, where you're going to move. It's different.
And in Legion, like you said, because the game is so fluid. And because I can take a movement template and I can stick it anywhere on a trooper unit and then flex the thing around, I'm like, I want to end up there. Okay. That's right where I want to end up. You can't do that in a game like X-Wing.
Okay.
Because you put the template down and wherever you end up at the end of that template is where you're at. There's not, I can't put it offset a little bit to the side and end up over here and like you can with the movement templates with troopers in Legion.
Yeah.
Even vehicle movement in Legion is a little bit more forgiving than it is in X-Wing because you can
stop early.
You can not only can you stop early, but you've got that hinge, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, I'm going to fly right into a building. Hinge it a little 45 degrees to the right, and I may not want it to end up here, but I'm not going to fly into the building, right?
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to have a little bit more say in where your endpoint is. So for a game like X-Wing, it's really important to have that hundreds of games of familiarity with your list. Legion, not so much, but you still need to know what you can do.
Yeah.
And you need to play enough games. I think even more
importantly,
you
want to see all the situations you can get your units into.
If I'm going to play Long March, here's how I've got to maneuver my guys. Mm-hmm. I can't hang my ATST back there. I've got to chuck it up a little bit more now.
Yep.
If I'm playing Rapid Reinforcements, okay, my snowtroopers, they're going to go off to the side here, and and I'll do what I can until round 2, and I'll deep strike these guys back here, yada yada. And,
so maybe
you got to know. You got to know. Okay, what am I going to do if I play 5 Rebel Troopers and 3 rotary ATSTs? What am I going to do if I play double ATST?
Yeah, you want to run that list through every variable you can have,
right?
So that way okay, these are its strengths, these are its weaknesses. These are the cards, especially with the the cards before the game starts. You want to make sure that you are picking the optimal card setup for what your list is good for. And the only way you'll know that is if you play each one of those scenarios with that list.
Generally, what I tend to do is I'll come up with a list and I'll play a couple games with it. And if I find an upgrade, grenades, grappling hooks, targeting scopes, whatever, that, you know what, I used this like 2 times in 5 games. I'll drop it and I'll see if I can use those points better somewhere else.
Then immediately find a situation where it would have
worked. Yeah. I wish I'd have had grappling hooks here. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said that yet in a game.
Neither have I.
I've honestly never had that.
We talked earlier in the show about being a 3D game versus a 2D game.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever climbed anything in this game all of the games that I've played.
It's hard. It takes a lot of time to climb something.
Yeah, and it requires... There's not enough benefit to being on top of something.
Yeah.
You know?
I've jumped
unless
with
you
Luke.
really stage the board to be that, but...
Well, sure, but yeah, I've gone over things with like Luke
I've
and
jumped
stuff
with
like that.
But yeah, it's
but like for a unit, you should be more, every game, video game, whatever, generally has an elevated attack gains accuracy, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're shooting down on people. I have the high ground, Anakin. Don't try it.
You underestimate my flower.
Anyway. So the game doesn't have like a tangible benefit to being up high. Mm-hmm. So really, unless I'm trying to, shortest path between a point is, a straight line.
Oh.
Hypotenuse?
You think you're so acute right now, but you're not. I guarantee it.
Am I being obtuse?
You are. Very obtuse.
You're right. Angle.
God. I hate you guys. Unless you're trying to go over something, there's really no reason to be on top of something.
Yeah.
Right? So...
Unless you need to claim an objective, unless somebody, having to put an objective
sure.
on, top floor or something.
So if I find, grappling hooks, I've played them 3-4 games, not that useful, I'll drop them and see if I can use the points somewhere else. So, yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah.
You can't be, this is my list and I will play it until I die. I know 5 games from now, if I use these grenades once, then it's worth it. I've seen people build lists like that, and I'm...
Fast forward to 5 years from now when we've got hundreds of commanders to choose from, and I'm still rocking the 3AT list.
Right?
No, I like it. It's not broken.
He's got his beard down to his waist now. He's some kind of crazy prospector.
Well, see, no. See, the beard is his transport solution for all of his troops. He just kind of plants them all in there. Yeah, tangles them in and drives.
We'll see how that works out. It might not be the most hygienic thing.
God.
Trooper gets killed on the board, just stick it back in my beard. It's way cheaper than battle foam.
Oh, God.
You're a strange
What
man.
have I started?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry.
Well, speaking of the list, I know we've kind of been looking around at the Tabletop Simulator application or game. It's on Steam, right?
Yes, on Steam.
Okay, so
with the Legion plugin.
Yes, and somebody posted up a question on our page this weekend and asked about, hey, where do I get this? What do I need? And I'm like, I advocate for it. I don't play it.
Yeah.
It's like Legion as a
If
whole.
you got time to play a game, you can call me and we can play a game.
Right.
Not that you ever would.
Yeah, I know, right? Stop it.
But I'm way too technologically stunted to even attempt to try that, whatever game it is. But it's got some interesting
crazy prospector beard.
Yeah, exactly. There's gold in there, hells. No. So what kind of statistics are we seeing for list management through Tabletop Simulator?
So Tabletop Simulator, the Invader League, which is kind of the online league that they run, they did a big round robin tournament and they played 60 some odd games total across all of their players. Interestingly enough, the top 3 lists were Rebel lists.
Really?
Yeah, all 3 of the top lists were...
Go Rebels!
Yeah. And the important thing to note about Tabletop Simulator is if it's been announced, it's in the game. So they've been playing with Leia and Fleet Troopers with what we know about them since they were announced.
And they probably had Han and Rebel Commandos as well?
I think so, yes. But, like the list that was the top list in there... had pretty expansive here. Luke Skywalker, Luke and Leia. So
there you
Luke,
go.
force reflexes and push.
Okay.
Leia with environmental gear.
Okay. Interesting.
Fleet Trooper Scattergun. a Z6 Rebel Trooper unit without the extra dude.
Okay.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, and then a bunch of ATRTs. And that's generally what you're seeing out there is troopers and ATRTs.
Yeah.
A lot of the Imperial lists that have been run are double ATST, which Veer's double ATST, which is surprising.
Well,
Now,
everybody's meta is different, but
Right.
Man,
What
that blows my
what
mind.
exactly is the line of sight blocking
I'm
on Tabletop
curious.
Simulator?
That
that's
does
the
beg
thing
the
that I'm
question.
trying that I'm not really sure on.
well, I mean, it's from what I can gather, watching videos of it and stuff. It runs just like the normal. You can move the camera around.
okay.
It's a 3D. It's a digital 3D space. So you can go and move rotate the camera around.
How did the terrain look? Let's ask you.
What's that?
How did the terrain look?
Well, what they've done is they've done and made a lot of organic boards that look like they're battlefields, right?
Okay.
Here we have a mat, and then it's got pieces on it.
Yeah.
There they have terrain that is like sloped and it's more topographical for
Okay.
Interesting.
So that's the kind of the rules that they're playing on. It's not, you'll have like a road and it'll have hills on either side of it, so it's like a little valley kind of thing. But they still try and stay, height 1 for most of it. So it's not like it's
okay. So there is some line of sight blocking.
right.
going
Yeah,
on.
there's some
Okay.
line of sight blocking in there.
But for the most part, the ATSTs are kind of able to fire at will throughout most of the board. Okay.
Yeah, because everything is to scale, is to Legion scale too.
Yeah.
So, it's not like it's but they play on like an Endor Forest board where there's trees everywhere.
Okay.
So if that terrain there's terrain blocking there, so there's the ability to maneuver. It's pretty neat. So, but yeah, a lot of double ATST, lot of Luke and Leia, lot of and almost universally trooper spam.
So are you seeing the amount of bikes that we've seen on actual tabletop game?
Not really.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
that's
surprising.
there's some bikes out there, but it's more double ATST than anything else.
Okay,
which was really surprising.
That's interesting because some of the most effective Imperial armies that I've seen run 2 or 3 bike squads.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen on Reddit and the Legion forums on Facebook, it sounds like that's a fairly common meta.
Yeah. Well, here I'm gonna.
And this tabletop, I think, Tabletop Simulator should be considered like a separate local meta. I mean, sure, they've got people
Right.
all around the globe playing, but it is a very specific 3D rendering of a
Right.
Sure,
real
but I would
game.
imagine that a lot of the people who play that also play in their own friendly local gaming store or their own.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
actual
yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder.
community.
Yeah, I wonder if they have a list that they play online versus a list that they play in the store.
And that could
if
very
any
well
of you
be.
guys out there are doing that, let us know.
Yeah, how does
shoot us
your
a message? I'm really curious.
Yeah, I would like to know that too because the only video game apparently we play around here is Beat Saber. So
Not true. I'm playing BattleTech 2, thank you. So, one of the top Imperial list is Veers with 4 units of Stormtroopers. They're all of them DLT and then the extra dude. And then 2 ATSTs with the Mortar and the 88.
Wow.
more to the 88. Okay.
So that's that's what that list is.
It's like week 1 build for ATST.
right?
Yeah, but you're still getting 4 trooper units, and that was kind of the thing that we saw initially with the ATSTs without Veers was that you really were having to sacrifice on your core.
Right.
You were really only doing 3 stormtrooper units bare bones with Vader and 2 ATSTs.
Yeah.
There's another list here that's Veers, 5 trooper units, a unit of bikes, and an ATST. So there's a lot of variety out there, but you're seeing a lot of ATSTs out there. More than I would have expected to see based on what we see here
Definitely in
locally.
our little area.
Right, yeah.
Our microcosm.
And that's, like you said, everywhere has its own meta that ends up developing.
Sure.
And the important thing about this is it's a league. Once the league starts, you don't change your list.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Interesting.
that's, so the folks who have had the most success, from what I understand, they weren't allowed to change their lists. But the folks who have had the most success are the ones that are running lots of ATRTs. One of the guys was naked ATRTs.
Really?
Hey!
Yeah, right? Hey,
No,
trendsetter
yeah,
over there, right?
yeah, no, probably.
Is he last place in the?
No, I think
Probably.
it was.
It was me. That Johnny's just a crazy
do
old
play other
wizard.
games.
Play State of Decay right now, but that's a
Nope,
game
it was
zone.
actually the guy that finished first. Ran 2 naked ATRTs.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah,
No kidding.
yeah.
Stomping for the rebels.
Look at that.
Woo!
Face kickers. Yeah.
That's a trendsetter.
So
I think I
but-
just dismissed that list earlier in this podcast. So
We'll edit that out.
okay, cool. Thanks. Thanks. I seem so wise.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's gonna pretty much do it for today. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to throw in here?
No.
We're probably going to try the live stream again. Hopefully, we'll have less issues with starting on time. Get some games lined up, but aiming for 7 p.m. PST on the Frontier Gaming channel on Twitch. Tune in. It was a hoot last time. Can I say? Can I say it was a hoot? I had fun.
This is a family
just
show.
Sorry. Yes.
It was a hootenanny.
Okay.
Yes.
Better. It's better.
Perhaps even a shindig.
Oh, careful now.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't turn into a Donnybrook.
Whoa.
No, we won't do that. But yeah, hopefully people can tune in, and we'll have some people playing Legion, sitting, chatting about it, and having fun.
All right, folks, that's our show for this week. Just want to remind you that the Legion Outrider podcast is brought to you by the Radio Free Tatooine Network, a podcast network that's better than some and worse than others. To see the full lineup of shows, head to radiofreetatooine.com. See you next week, Outriders.
You've been listening to the Legion Outriders podcast, a member of the Radio Free Tatooine Network.
Only now, at the end, do you understand?
For more from the Outriders, make sure you like us on Twitter at Legion Outriders, subscribe to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Legion Outriders, and make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. Thanks for listening.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.